Today we're back in the back room at Jimmy Suds Car Wash to winterize the sprinkler system for 2023. I did a video like this back in 2021 and I wanted to do it again last year, but I didn't end up being able to do it because I had to winterize the system while we were still open. Running around with the camera while cars are going back and forth, it would just be too much of a distraction, unfortunately. But this year I'm able to do it after hours just like in 2021, so let's go ahead and get started with winterizing the Jimmy Suds Car Wash sprinkler system for 2023. These are the two compressors that we have at the car wash right here. We have this big tan Ingersoll Rand one and this big teal Sullivan Polytech one. We're actually going to be able to use both of these compressors this year, which is great. I don't know if you guys remember, but last year this one didn't have any oil in it. But this year they've both got oil, they both work perfect, and that's going to help us keep our pressure constant throughout the whole time we're winterizing the system. But first we got to get the air from here all the way down to the other end of this back room. It's kind of nice this year we don't have the big salt tanks in the way, but we do have a bunch of stuff in the way of where I need to connect the air still, but this is a lot easier to move than those salt tanks were. Right here we have the exact same air lines that I used back in 2021 to winterize this system. They're looking a little dirtier than they were back then, but they still do the job perfect. And we're going to be connecting it to the same spot we did in 2021. The line has gotten replaced since then, but same concept. The yellow lines are going to start right here and they're going to get daisy chained together and then run all the way down to the other end of the back room so we can get air into the sprinkler system. And we're all hooked up, so let's go ahead and follow it from the air regulator into this coiled blue hose into the yellow really long hose, and there's where the daisy chain starts. It's kind of annoying. The first hose is just like barely too short to reach all the way out there, so I gotta use the second one, but luckily I don't have to uncoil it all the way. So anyway, the line just keeps on going down to the other end of the back room. Quite a distance right here. We're about there now. And here it is right here. Now I didn't actually have to move any of this stuff, which was nice. I just kind of reached over everything and plugged it right into the backflow preventer right there. This is also where the sprinkler controller is at. Now for those of you who were here in 2021, you know that we won't actually have to be touching this thing throughout the blowout process because I can control this from my phone, which is something I really wish I had at home because it makes this process significantly easier. The last thing we need to do before we can start winterizing this system is turn on the air compressors and get the tanks charged up. We don't technically have to do this just because these air compressors are so powerful, especially when they're both running at the same time, but it's something I like to do anyway just so we can get started with the highest amount of pressure that these tanks can hold. Just like when I did this in 2021, we're going to be starting off at zone 1, which has changed just a little bit since you guys have last seen it. I expanded this zone quite a bit in 2022. If you want to watch that video, there's a card in the top right corner of the screen for you. But in that video, we didn't have all this grass here, and I think this came out really nice. It definitely looks a lot nicer than it did before. But anyway, I'm finally going to shut up and open the valve for zone 1. And the blowout process has finally been started. It looks like we're already getting some air out of this one down here. That's pretty nice. For those of you who were here in 2021, you remember that this one took freaking forever to blow out, and I still can't figure out why. It seems like it's going a little bit faster this year, although I know that past about this point right here, it turns into just, you know, the half-inch funny pipe stuff that I use to expand the zone. But we're going pretty good here so far. Check that out. So I think my theory was correct about why this part is blowing out a lot faster than the rest of it. The line that I used to expand this zone is a lot smaller than it is for the rest of the zone that was here from the start. And I believe that started right about, I think past this head is where the original zone started. I can't really remember though, but as you can see, the original heads are still hanging on pretty well right here. Now, realistically, stopping it here would be totally fine, but as you can see, we still got a little bit of water coming out of this head, and I really don't want to risk having anything freeze and break over the winter because it does get incredibly cold in Colorado over the winter. So I'm straight up just going to sit here and wait until I think that is the last one that's actually putting out any water. All the rest of them are just putting out air. This one's putting out a little bit of mist every once in a while, but that's pretty much dry. All right, I think it's safe to say we're pretty good to move on to the next zone right here. Check that out. That one is finally just blowing air along with the other 14 heads on this zone. Gonna go ahead and check our pressure before we move on to the next zone here. It looks like I didn't even need to do that. You see what I'm talking about, guys? I really wish I had compressors like this at home because that was just open for 8 minutes and we barely lost any pressure. That is so nice, and it makes this process just so incredibly fast. Well, now that we know we're good on pressure, let's go ahead and move on to zone 2. Gonna go ahead and get this exit door for the tunnel closed up before I go over there. So for those of you who are new, zone 2 is right here in this area, right by the entrance to the parking lot. And here we go with zone 2. Already got some air coming out of this one right here. I think this is a Hunter MP3000. Looks like I'm right. This one usually goes quite a bit faster than zone 1 does. I still don't know why that first zone holds so much water compared to the rest of them, but that's just the way it is, and that's how it's always been. These two are still holding on right here. Actually, quite a few of them along the sidewalk right here are holding on to their water. That's the sound you want to hear when you're blowing out sprinklers, guys. Good sounds. And that sounds and looks like it's about the end of the water on zone 2. That was a nice quick one, so let's go ahead and go on to zone 3. Zone 3 runs along this really long, narrow strip of yard right here. And this zone actually got entirely rebuilt over this summer. I really should have done a video on it, but the process for it wasn't too terrible. It was kind of annoying, but not too bad. Over the summer, we actually dug a trench along the curb right here. And in the process of that, we kind of destroyed zone 3. So to fix it, we pretty much just installed an entirely brand new zone, all new lines. It's 1-inch PVC. I glued it all together, put in the T's that have the half-inch thread for the sprinklers to thread onto, and since then it's been working great. So now it's time to find out if pretty much the first sprinkler line I've ever built from scratch can hold up to 175 PSI being blown out. That's a good start. That's what I like to see. Nothing exploded when I put the pressure on it. Very nice to see that. And as you can see, the sprinklers are spaced out a little bit more evenly now than they were before because, as I said, this is a completely brand new line that we installed here. And this line is fed from the middle, so the middle sprinklers are going to be losing their their water first before the outer ones do. But it looks like we're actually clearing it out pretty quick. So we got a couple more that are just kind of hanging on down there, but the rest of them are just blowing air at this point. I forgot to mention we added this sprinkler as well this summer, but I think that's about it for this zone, which is a good thing because we're actually starting to lose pressure with the air compressors, and this is the only zone that can do that because it's so gigantic. There's so many heads on this zone. All right, for the sake of the video, I'm just going to go ahead and move on to zone 4. I will be going back through all of the zones off camera, though, after I'm done shooting this video to make sure we got everything out. This is where we start getting into the rotors on this system because the yard gets quite a bit bigger as you get farther away from the building and out toward the main road. I think this zone actually entirely consists of stainless steel i20s. There might be some plastic ones in there too, but back in 2020, I did switch out all of the rotors on this system for i20s. And just like in 2021, we're losing water on this one before any of the others. That is deafeningly loud. I always forget how loud these sprinklers are when they're being blown out. This is absolutely deafening. Sorry if the camera work gets a little weird while I'm walking here. I'm trying to keep my lights out of the main road here so I don't blind anyone trying to drive. There is some plastic ones on this zone, that's right. So this is one that has the non-potable water cap on it too. And the story behind that is just simply because the place I went to buy these sprinklers didn't have stainless steel ones with the black cap in stock every time I went. Just about empty on this. This is looking pretty good. We're gonna let it go for just a little bit longer though before I go on to zone 5. We're still just barely holding on to the water down here at the end of the line. The rest of the zone is pretty much empty though. For the sake of the video, I'm gonna be moving on to zone 5 here, but again, I will be coming back through all of the zones to make sure we got everything out of them before I go home tonight. And as I mentioned, guys, this is the only sprinkler that's on this zone, so it didn't take very long to get all the water out of it. Now, there is one more zone down here in this field area, and that used to be zone 5, but it's now zone 7. It's kind of around this area right here, so we're going to go ahead and get that blown out next. This is the last of the zones that has rotors on this system. And there is one all the way over here by the sidewalk. I'm not entirely sure why it's not just on zone 4 with the rest of them, but it doesn't really matter. And with that, guys, all the sprinklers on zone 7 are now blowing air. So I'm going to go ahead and call this zone good and move on to the final zone. And that last zone is right here in this little patch of grass that we call the Flagpole Island. Now, we are back to MP rotators for this zone because this area really isn't all that big. And that is officially going to be it for winterizing the sprinkler system at Jimmy Suds Car Wash for 2023. As you can see, they're all just blowing out nothing but air now, which is exactly what you want to see when you're winterizing a sprinkler system. There you go, guys. That is going to be it for yet another sprinkler video on the Jimmy Suds Car Wash system. If you enjoy content like this, be sure to come back next Friday because that's when I'm finally going to be releasing the winterization of the system at my house. And if you guys want to see an opening video of this system in the spring next year, let me know in the comments and I'm sure I can make that happen. But anyway, guys, until next Friday, that is going to be it for this video. So I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, thank you for watching.